Human life is futuristic. It is oriented or designed for the future. It is an anticipation of itself. Therefore, it is a more or less rich and detailed imagination of something that does not exist yet, but that will come. This anticipation undoubtedly refers to things which are largely unpredictable, and also to the people with whom each one makes or may make their life, and who are not given. Even in the case of counting on those already existing and known, their variation is foreseen. We anticipate them in different conditions, at least with a different age. In adults, this is not particularly relevant, except in the long term, but it is decisive when it comes to children or very young people. In the case of the elderly, age becomes important again because it is assumed that they may not be here in the near future. What is decisive, however, is that the futuristic condition affects the person themselves. When projecting myself, I imagine myself not only with the uncertainty of whether I will continue to live within the time frame of this imagination, but I also see myself as another, altered by the passage of time and the changes in circumstance, both physical and, above all, human. This means that reality is insufficient, or in other words, that in the human, an entirely new idea of what reality is emerges. Perception refers to what currently exists. Imagination, in its strictly projective sense, deals with what does not exist and may not even come to exist for certain. From the usual point of view, this would disqualify its contents. In any case, it would be a secondary and deficient form of reality. However, it happens that my reality is constituted by this futuristic condition as an intrinsic ingredient. This means that possibility, traditionally understood as a mere possibility, is within my reality and as a constituent part of it. This affects the person as such, and therefore affects strictly personal relationships. The social dimension consists of the system of pressures that are the prevailing norms, especially customs, active forces, with which the individual clashes and which condition, regulate, and modify their behavior. Therefore, it has a current character, and in this sphere, human relationships move within the scope of collective life. The normal forms of inter-individual coexistence, what we can call interaction with known people, consist mainly of psychic acts, also current, and in which the futuristic condition does not appear directly. This arises inexorably when the person as such is involved, when it comes to me taking possession of my reality, and from there entering into relation with other people, in effective contact with what they have personally. Therefore, we have that the personal world, to the extent that it is distinguished from other forms of circumstance, including the human, at its already considered levels, has an unexpected structure, and about which there is not enough clarity. It is determined by what could be called perceptual unreality. Perception alone would make personal relationships impossible. Other human possibilities, especially imagination, must intervene for this world to be constituted. Futurism introduces intrinsic temporality into it. Therefore, it belongs to it, this form of reality that is the happening. Finally, it is constituted by the convergence of projects, the core of what is strictly personal. This explains the function of the face in this world I am trying to delineate and describe. The human person is a bodily being, without omitting the sense of either term. The face is the bow, the facade, the front of corporeality. The person's future character is expressed in the face, which advances and goes out to meet others. Therefore, it belongs to it, not only the form or figure, but above all the expression of what? Of interiority in the highest degree of intimacy from the latent depth of the person. This is manifesting, not so much through features but in an event. It is literally emerging, flowing in the living face. The contemplation of a human face is not properly seeing in the sense of mere perception. One watches it, its flow in which it is being made. Therefore, when considering it as such, personally, it is unlimited, endless, inexhaustible. On the contrary, in social or simply psychic relationships, the face represents only the human with some generic attributes, sex, age, condition, or mere individual identification, which does not become personal. In these cases, the face is seen, and at most can be recognized, but lacks the fullness that makes it unique and irreplaceable. Let's compare the view of someone else's face in these two forms I've just indicated, the one that is not entirely personal, although it is always of a person, and the strictly personal, when you see it again after a certain time. In the first case, there is recognition, which can be doubtful when merely social. We see someone we've seen before, but we're not sure where. It could be a shopkeeper, but they're outside their shop, or a waiter, but they lack their bar or restaurant setting, or the mail carrier, hardly recognizable due to the absence of mail, or the priest outside the church. When you remember or imagine their usual context, identification occurs. If the person is known, if our interaction is in the realm of psychic acts, greetings, conversations, encounters, superficial friendship, etc., upon seeing them again, we spontaneously take stock of noticeable changes: aging, state of health, flourishing or deterioration, joy or sadness. When we see a person who is irreplaceable to us and not just unmistakable, something quite distinct is added to this examination I have just mentioned. Even if it is someone we see very often, even daily, we seek in them not only where they are, but where they are going. We see them as futuristic, in themselves and in relation to us, as coming towards the one they encounter, as going out to meet them. In other words, we see them as a project, and in this lies precisely the apprehension as a person. This consideration alone would suffice to discern what our loved ones are to us. The degrees and forms of this paradoxical presence of the future are the truest and deepest articulations of personal relationships. But it is not only about the future, something is still missing.